Welcome to Perspectives El Paso. I'm Leon Blevins, Professor of Government at El Paso Community College. This is late February of 2016. I started doing this show in, I think it was around March, somewhere in that time, of 2007. I knew when I was asked to do this show exactly some of the first people I wanted to interview. And one of these I had on the fourth program in 2007. I'm now up to about 270 programs over these years, and I brought back one of my early ones in that fourth program. This is Tanny Berg. Tanny, good to see you again.
It's great to see you, Leon. It's
oh,
always good to see you.
My goodness. I met this man, Tanny Berg, I guess probably the mid-'70s. I came back here in '72. A friend of mine named Tommy Wright said, "You've got to meet a friend of mine downtown." He's a businessman. And so I went downtown with him one day and was introduced to Tanny Berg. He was working in the back part of his father's business, Jack Berg Sales. And here was this man working out of the back door in an alley, unreal, in South El Paso. A Jewish family. And here they were in sales, doing a lot of sales in Mexico, right?
All over. We were real. Still miss that alley. I still miss that. I still miss that warehouse.
And so he worked out of that, and I would start buying a lot of electronic stuff, from early VHS tapes and machines and Panasonic handheld recorders and all kinds of stuff. And he taught me how to connect some in my van, even before they started putting them in vans at the manufacturers. And people were just delighted about this, and we had a great relationship. And I'd go by sometimes as Santa Claus at Christmas time, and we'd do a picture. Go by other times around the 4th of July and do Uncle Sam and get a picture. And Tanny tells me he still has some. Now look, I have a picture of Tanny here from El Paso Inc.
That was me.
In 2010. Hey, we're holding up pretty well, Tanny.
Hard to believe I was that young once.
Now, Tanny moved out from a lot of the import-export business and a lot of the electronics, and he moved more over into real estate and helping to redevelop some strip malls and things like that, and has become a premier property owner in El Paso, Texas, and management. You and your son have been working together a number of years.
My son Elliot has joined us, even though he grew up here in El Paso and he went to Coronado and USC and got his law degree from Pepperdine. We were very lucky to actually get him to come back and move back to El Paso.
Now you were going to go somewhere else to college when you got, where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school at El Paso High. I was in the 50th graduating class at El Paso High, which this year will be the 100th anniversary.
I just
of El Paso
interviewed
High. 2
women talking about that anniversary. For you watch for that show in the next couple of weeks, 100th anniversary there. So you went for high school, then you were going to go out of town, you decided to stay at UTEP.
And then I stayed at UTEP. I was going to go out of town, go to Tulane in New Orleans, and I ended up staying at UTEP and loved it. Spent 4 wonderful years at UTEP, graduated in 1970.
And your major was?
And my major was business.
Oh, expected it to be
business administration. Actually started out pre-med and became business administration.
Oh my, great. So let's talk about your business adventures, and then we want to talk about some of your public service. I know you're great in public service activities here. Tell us about your business. How did you get into the real estate part, and how has it gone over these years?
So my dad had this distribution company that he started in 1952 when he came here from Europe, and it had grown somewhat. When I got to join him in 1970 when I graduated college, we grew it into a large wholesale distributing company. Panasonic, Hitachi, Sharp, Sanyo, Toshiba. We were the distributor for all those brands. We had 4 or 5 major competitors here. All of them were selling mainly to Central America and South America, Mexico. Mexico had precluded a lot of this stuff from legally entering their country, so people who wanted a TV had to come up to the border, buy a TV, and take it down there for themselves. So Mexico made it relatively easy for us to sell what we were selling, the quantities of product we were selling. But by 1985, Mexico had changed its law and allowed for more and more of this product that we were used to selling into Mexico to be imported directly to Mexico and to be sold through distributors in Mexico. So in 1985, I made a decision to veer away from the distribution company and move into real estate. Much to my father's credit, he trusted me and went my way. In 1985, we literally shut down our warehouse with millions of dollars worth of inventory, moved into the real estate business, and that inventory today is considered vintage.
I remember one day I dropped by and you were on eBay. eBay had just come on and you fell in love with eBay.
We're still selling 8-track players and record players and toys and virtually clothing and everything that was from the 1960s and 70s and early 80s. including Atari, which was one of the companies we distributed. It froze in time, and it still sits down in our warehouse, and we have it on our website at jackbergsales.com, or we put it on eBay, and it sells. It's not really what we do, but it's what I love doing because it brings me back to the days when you used to come down and visit me.
Well, you have assistants that help. One time I dropped by and there was a woman sitting there that my wife had taught sign language to her and the whole family. And
True.
There was a picture of me on the wall right next to her desk in your office, of all things.
Absolutely. And you know, it's funny, even though I've moved up to Executive Center where our buildings are, the buildings we own are today, and where my office is, if you'll come in there, you're going to find a picture of Leon Blevins on the desk right next to me.
Okay, now how did you get into redeveloping strip malls?
So we started out with little properties. We were trying to just do shopping center, not even shopping centers, individual stores. We brought Pep Boys, for example, to El Paso, or Grandy's, which was a wonderful fried chicken place, to El Paso.
Right.
And then we expanded a little bit and started doing, my first strip mall was on George Dieter, right across from Penndale, right next to what is today Big 8 supermarket. So we did a little strip mall there, and then we did one across the street, and we were very fortunate. We were able to do another, and it's grown. Today we have Minor Village, which is in front of UTEP. I always hated that the Pep Boys had put a building right as you come out of the Special Events Center, and it looked pretty degenerate. I wanted something that would really enhance
classy.
That neighborhood.
You wanted something classy.
Something classy. So we did Minor Village right there in front of UTEP to try to make it look better for UTEP, for all of us, students and members of the community at large that love this community, this campus, and that school.
Well, you're constantly on the phone then with contractors and subcontractors. You have to know who can do the job you want done.
You need to know who can do it right, and can do it timely and on schedule and on budget, which is really the thing we look for.
Okay.
And there's a lot of El Pasoans who can do that.
Okay. Do you have any idea where you stand on actual square footage of space that you own or rent or lease in the community?
We're not the largest by far. They're large, River Oaks and Mimco properties, and even my good friend Gilbert Malooly. Those companies own substantially more than we do. But I'd say we're certainly within the top 10.
Oh, okay.
And in office complexes, which is what we primarily do, we're the largest. We have almost 1 million square feet of just offices all through El Paso, from Lee Trevino and George Dieter on the east side, all the way to Executive Center and Mesa Street on the west side.
Well, you know, I realize you did not just make money for yourself. You have enriched this community. You have made this a better place in which to do business and to function.
Well, I thank you. My life is really the not-for-profits. I've been honored to serve through the years of my life.
Okay, let's talk about that aspect of your life then. I know KCUS Television, right next door. I just recently interviewed the new general manager, Emily Loya, I believe is her name. And I've seen you, I've worked with you some on that over the years. Tell us a little bit about that one, and then let's talk about some of the others.
So KCOS is a treasure for this community. Most of us turn on our TV and we watch TV and we see commercials and we think, well, you know, either I pay a cable bill or I do a satellite bill, and somehow these TV stations get on the air, they do commercials. KCOS doesn't live off of commercials, doesn't even have commercials. The only way KCOS and public stations like KCOS live is through memberships. Most of these stations, you and I were talking before we went on, most of these stations belong to universities. So they go down to state legislatures, whether they're in Santa Fe or in Austin, they ask for a handout and the state gives them money, and then that's how these stations operate. KCOS is unique. It's one of only 20% of the stations in the nation that is actually owned by the community that it lives in. So the city of El Paso, all of us citizens, own KCOS. But the way we claim it is by becoming members of the station. That $5 a month that we pay into KCOS pays for the programs like Downton Abbey and all the children's programs, Sesame Street, and all the children's programs we've seen, and all the wonderful nature programs. Those programs aren't free. Antiques Roadshow is not free. We have to buy that show from the network called PBS. And we do that by members pledging $5 a month to keep the station on the air. El Paso, at one time, we had over 4,000 memberships, family units that contributed $5 a month to the existence of the station. Today, that's down to just under 2,000. So we have a way to go to get back where we once were. That money is the lifeblood upon which the station depends to exist. It is food for the mind. It is the type of programming I can sit with my grandchildren and watch, where I don't have to worry about what's going to come on TV. Is it going to be something that is sexual in nature or violent in nature? I can watch any KCOS TV show knowing that it's going to be healthy and a good family-oriented program without commercials, because the commercials are your joining, your membership. So those of us who are not making contributions realize that it puts in jeopardy the very existence of that station.
Now, you have served as the chairman of the board of KCOS.
Many times.
Okay.
And I'm still on the board.
And we're on the beginning of the station actually getting started many years ago.
I actually came in, the station had been about 5 or 10 years old when I first started, which is now 30 years ago. But Diana Natalicio was very involved in the conception of that station, as was the National Council of Jewish Women that procured the charter that actually made that station a reality. That charter is written to KCOS, K, the City of the Sun. That's why it's called COS, City of the Sun. And that charter is written to the citizens of the city of El Paso, Texas. So guess what? You own that station too, but you got to pay your $5 a month to claim it.
And we're involved with them. They're just right next door.
Thank God for El Paso Community College. We were lucky enough to be, or we were fortunate enough to be, for 25 years on the campus at UTEP.
Right.
And it was a wonderful relationship, still is. We still have a member of the UTEP board staff on our board. Right. And we have developed an incredibly good relationship with El Paso Community College. And we are your next door neighbors. And we actually share equipment together, we share staff. And we're very fortunate to work together with El Paso Community College, which has been a phenomenal relationship for both institutions.
And this program we're doing right now will show on EPCC TV, and then we'll show
on KCOS.
On KCOS. So it's a joint situation.
That's how much we love each other.
Oh, I know.
You and me and the stations.
Oh my, it's a love feast today. Okay, tell us about some of the other nonprofits.
So the other thing that I really got involved with just only 5 or 6 years ago, that many El Pasoans may not be aware of, is that people don't realize what a food bank is. And everybody thinks, El Pasoans Fighting Hunger is our local food bank. It's affiliated with Feeding America. Everywhere you turn on the TV today, you see Feeding America. It's on Dancing with the Stars. It's on everywhere you go. Feeding America is a big deal. But for many, many years, 19 years exactly, the food bank that was supposed to be serving El Paso was housed in Odessa, and didn't really have any El Pasoan on that board to focus on the situation in El Paso. Today, we have almost 180,000 people in El Paso County that qualify to take food out of a food bank. There's only one food bank in every county. A lot of us may think, well, there's a lot of food banks. They're always asking for food. There's a lot of food. There may be a lot of food pantries, but there's only one food bank, as designated by the United States government. USDA assigns food banks. Every county in this country only has one food bank. One food bank may serve 12 counties, but every county only has one food bank. Okay. So at a time where we were affiliated with the West Texas Food Bank out of Odessa, that food bank served 16 counties, of which El Paso County was one.
Oh my.
Today, El Pasoans Fighting Hunger is an El Paso-based, El Paso-owned food bank. Serves only 3 counties, Hudspeth, Culberson, and El Paso. Most of the people are in El Paso. And what designates somebody who's hungry is somebody who's really not sure where their next meal is going to come from. So of these 180,000 people in our county who qualify to take food out of a food bank, what you and I may not know is 42% of them are under 9 years old. Under 9.
Wow.
They're kids.
Hungry children.
53% of them are under 16. So where 42% may be under 9, more than half are 16 years old and under. 28% are over 75 years old. Who are we serving? We're serving children and we're serving seniors. Seniors who may be making Social Security or they may be making some kind of retirement income, but in reality it's not enough to feed themselves. So at the end of the day, we give them a little box of food that lasts them for about 2 weeks. It's really to supplement the food they can get on their own. The vast majority of the people we serve are little children and they're single moms. So people have this misconception, the guy on the street corner with the sign, "We'll work for food," he's a person who takes food out of food bank. It's generally a single mom with little children or somebody who's older, over 75 years old. These food banks, like the one we have in El Paso, don't give food out directly to the hungry. So if you're hungry, you don't come to a food bank and get food. You go to one of the agencies that the food bank serves. In El Paso, there's 122 agencies, which include the Rescue Mission, the Salvation Army, Boys and Girls Clubs, the Child Crisis Center. All these organizations take food from the food bank. So when you and I make a donation to the Child Crisis Center before the food bank existed, part of that donation will go to be buying food at Costco, Sam's, or wherever they had to go. Because we now have a food bank, more of the dollar you give to United Way, more of the dollar you give to the Boys and Girls Clubs, more of the dollar you give to the Salvation Army can go to programming, because their food can come from the food bank that gets most of its food from the USDA or from Walmart, Target, Sam's, and today Costco and Albertsons. Which
a couple of years ago, I had a lady who was running that operation, and we put out a call for money for a new truck. That was their big need. They needed a new truck.
Well, Walmart gave us a truck. Walmart gave us the money for a truck.
Yeah.
And we actually got another truck from a benefactor who asked to be named, who asked to be anonymous, who gave us another $120,000. But at the end of the day, it's the $5, just like I was asking for $5 to feed the blind. This is $5 a month that you might give to feed the hungry. And I will tell you, they're our neighbors. These are people who, but for the grace of God, it could have been us.
Now, a lot of these agencies you mentioned, you've also worked with. You've worked with Child Crisis Center.
I was the chairman of the Child Crisis Center
Boy
for 3
Scouts
years.
or whatever,
I've
Boys and
been
Girls
involved with the Boy
Clubs.
Scouts and the Girl Scouts and the Boys and Girls Clubs.
How do you find time to narrow it down and say, this is where I really need to put some energy? Evidently, the food bank is a big one.
Well, the reason I love the food bank is because it helps out all the other agencies I've been involved with.
Oh, okay.
Before the food bank existed, when I was with the Child Crisis Center, we'd raise money, people would give us money. It's a very good organization, and we need the money at the Child Crisis Center. But then some portion of that money that we'd raise would have to go out and buy food for the kids. Now, I can use as much food as I can get from the food bank, and every dollar I get to the Child Crisis Center, I can use to buy blankets, or I can buy pillows, or books, or other things, programs that will keep those kids occupied and moving them forward in their development. I think that the Boys and Girls Clubs and the Child Crisis Center and the Rescue Mission, the Salvation Army, and all of these 122 agencies that are taking their food from the food bank make it better, make it more efficient for us to be philanthropic, you and me, and all the things we do in our community, because we no longer have to devote so much of our resources towards the basic element of food.
Right.
So kids can go to school maybe with breakfast.
Before our time runs out, I need to remind you and the audience that when I interviewed you years ago, we were talking about downtown redevelopment.
We were.
And there were different views about downtown redevelopment, clearance and building new, or working on the facades and things. How, in this few minutes that we have left, have you seen this happen about downtown redevelopment? How do you feel about it?
Back then, the Union Depot, the Union Plaza was a dream that we had. We developed the name. We wanted it to come off today. Thanks to the sports arena that's out there, I think the community development is moving along pretty well. We've got some housing that we brought into the downtown area, which is also very good. We've watched as some of the buildings have been redeveloped into lofts or some kind of apartments or something else. And that's good too. The thing I didn't want to see happen is I didn't want to supplant what was already down there. That element that helped my dad get started, the opportunity for a small man to come into El Paso and with hard work and devotion begin a business, because to try to combat the Targets, Walmarts, Kmart's, Sam's, Best Buys of the world today is very tough. But in downtown El Paso, you could get a foothold like my dad did. So I didn't want to necessarily see those businesses go down. We haven't, in my opinion, done a lot to incubate those businesses, to keep them alive and going. I'm watching as more and more downtown businessmen start closing their shop and moving away. I think we need to refocus. We need to keep the development we've got going on the perimeter of downtown. But I think we need to get to that inner core and really help those businessmen that are struggling to keep those businesses alive in the center of El Paso. And they're usually immigrants, either from Southeast Asia or from Mexico or Central America. I think they deserve our help to sustain their businesses and to be able to compete in this market.
Do some of these governmental agencies that are working down there, downtown management and the other kinds of things that are happening, are you seeing that they're proving helpful in this regard?
Well, I'm very involved still with the Central Business Association called the CBA.
Okay.
And the CBA was the father of the Downtown Management District. We created it. We've circulated the petition. We got it going. I think the Downtown Management District is helpful. I think the Central Business Association, which in my opinion should be linked to the Downtown Management DMD, the Downtown Management Department, ought to both be working together harmoniously to keep downtown alive, but with focus on all elements of downtown, not just on the element that may prove to be good for north of Main Street, but those that are also positive for south of Main Street. And that is the immigrant who came to El Paso, like my dad did, set up a foothold, a little store downtown, is struggling to keep it going. I think they deserve a hand to make certain that they succeed.
A number of years ago, my wife and I dropped by your alleyway, and we went shopping. And
I remember.
A few months later, my wife took our granddaughter down there, and they were doing some shopping, and they stopped at I think it was a McDonald's on Paso.
Still there.
And they were in there, and our granddaughter, Taya Rose, she looks at it and says, "Grandma, are we still in America?" Because she saw only brown people and heard Spanish. And
see, and I love that. The bicultural, binational.
That was just 2 blocks from your alleyway.
It was, but it was my alleyway too. I mean, to me, that's what defines this country. That's what defines our city. I think in this political atmosphere that we're seeing today, we're seeing a lot of xenophobia and anti-immigrant speech and doctrine, but in reality, I think we define a wonderful blend of cultures. And I think San Antonio, pretending to be El Paso, has proven itself to be eminently successful. They pretend to be on the river, they pretend to be across from Mexico. The reality is we are the reality that San Antonio pretends to be. We just have to believe in ourselves, and we need to develop this word in Spanish called orgullo, which many El Pasoans don't understand. It means pride. Having a pride in our culture and who we are, and making the best of what we are.
Well, this article in El Paso Inc., El Paso's biggest fan, Tanny Berg.
I am.
Now, I know that one of the big issues when we first met was and it's in that article, that discussion, about the brain drain, educating people here, and then they head to Dallas or San Antonio or other places to work. Have we improved on that?
Not really, Leon, and that's troubling. I think that we still haven't figured out the formula for keeping those students who excel in schools, who are in the top 2% or top 10% of all of our high schools, whether it's Hanks or whether it's Coronado, whether it's El Paso or Jefferson, keeping those top 2% and 10% students to consider coming back and locating in El Paso, opportunities. You know, I talked to somebody just this afternoon about a young man who I had the opportunity to meet. He was number 3 in his class at Franklin, and he really wanted to come back here. He went to Penn, which is a good Ivy League school, and he came down, he met with me after he graduated, and I really wanted to keep him here, and he ended up taking a job in Manhattan and lives in New York now. And we can say hooray for him. That's a great thing. He succeeded. He's in Manhattan, but it's a loss for El Paso. We invested in his education for the first 12 years. Each of us paid our taxes to keep all the schools he went to around. And at the end of the day, when he finally succeeded, he left us. In my opinion, if we don't figure out some way of keeping our young people here with opportunity to make $100,000. We need not to be scared of $100,000 salary or $200,000 or $1 million salary. We have to start thinking with the dynamic of Dallas or Houston or Los Angeles or New York. And with that mindset, we have the best kept secret in the whole world here because we're El Paso.
Well, just recently a state comptroller's report came out indicating El Paso was not in leadership position of some other cities in Texas that have more technology, innovation taking place. And until you businessmen are attracting businesses to come here, and the community college training people for these jobs, and UTEP training people for these jobs, we'll stay where we are. We'll stay out of that loop.
That is absolutely the truth.
So it is important that our leadership be out there shaking the bushes to get some of these companies to come here.
The thing is, we need to locate what is our specific advantage. Because people can move to the Silicon Valley or Austin or Houston or Dallas. What gives us an advantage over them? And I say it's our geographic location. The fact that we're on the threshold of not just Mexico. If we'll pull the rheostat back a little bit and see us on the threshold of Central America and South America, and realize the production capability that exists down there with the huge consumption capability in Canada and the United States. If we can somehow marry the potential of building a relationship, not just with Mexico, but entirely with Central and South America, linked with the consumption of North America, guess what? We are the bridge. El Paso is the bridge. That gives us that advantage that is unique to this area, that Dallas can't compete with, Chicago can't compete with. It's unique to us. If we exploit that and really focus on how are we going to make that into something that universally, globally positions us for the future of our region for the next 100 years,
I agree.
then guess what? Our kids will stay here. And the community college is doing a great job. And UTEP is doing a great job. We're just not keeping them here. That will keep them here.
Well, right on an axis, on this Interstate 10
Right.
going east and west, and on north and south, we're right here, Canada into Mexico. So we have that axis if we can build on it.
If we can build on it, and if we can have pride in our Hispanic culture, I think one of the things we need to do as a community is, rather than, I love your Santa Claus, I love Santa Claus, but in reality, it's champurrado, atole, buñuelos, and posadas that identify us. We need to buy into that culture, make it part of who we are, and then we need to be so proud of it that we will spread it
And
to everywhere.
Tio Samuel loves tacos.
And Samuelos tacos would be
One
great.
time I did a program in South El Paso at La Fe. It's Chico the mariachi dancer. Well, I go back to my car. Some guys see my car. It says big text on the back of it. I'm dressed like a Mexican. They said, "What's this big text? And you look like a Mexican." I said, "Yes." And a woman walks up and she says, "I saw at the Shamas all the other day. You were Uncle Sam." I said, "That's me. From day to day, I never know who I'm going to meet." And I danced the mariachi loco for them right there on the curb.
It's not incongruous. That's what we need to tell our people. Uncle Sam, and being proud of your heritage as a Hispanic, as a Mexican, that's not incongruous.
Tio
That's not
Samuel.
conflicting.
No, it's not. Well, our time has run out. Oh my goodness, we need more time. We did an hour program for Tanny Berg. Thanks, Tanny, for
I
coming
love
on
you,
again.
Leon Blevins.
Don't put so many years between us next
I
time.
agree with you. I totally
Thank you for watching Perspectives El Paso. I'm still Leon Blevins, even though I do look kind of like Santa Claus and Uncle Sam. Thanks.